Or would see the death of one world champion and the dramatic rise to prominence of another. The season would see my old team, Benetton, sidestep both McLaren and Ferrari with near contemptuous ease. From the outset, the duel for championship honours was between ourselves and Williams. A difficult struggle, a fight that wasn't decided until Australia, the season's finale. But all of that is 16 races away. Today, it's round one.
Thank you, Steve, and hello, everyone. Bob Varsha along with Steve Matchett, your host, and David Hobbs. Welcome to a new season of Formula One Decade. There is Ayrton Senna on pole for the third time in 3 seasons and first time for his new team, Williams-Renault. As you take a look down through the starting grid, let's recall 1994 saw Bill Clinton in his first term in office. No one had heard of either Harry Potter or Speed Channel.
Or Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who qualified 5th on his very first Grand Prix.
Jasper Verstappen making his Formula One debut. And there's Mika Hakkinen, a future 2-time world champion, in a Peugeot B10-powered McLaren. Young Rubens Barrichello, the idol of the big Brazilian crowd at the Interlagos circuit in Sao Paulo, Brazil, driving for the Jordan Hart team.
Just beginning his second year, and he was still at that stage only 21 years old.
Martin Brundle drafted into the McLaren team to replace the departed Ayrton Senna. Not many names from this grid carry forward to the current one. One of them is Olivier Panis, starting toward the back.
Lotus having a pretty miserable day too in Brazil there. Johnny Herbert down there in 21st and Pedro Lamy 24th. Lotus already starting that awful spiral down and finally out.
It's very difficult to pull a team back, David, once they start to spiral down. There were a few attempts to keep Lotus going, but it wouldn't last for them. We just see the cars now pulling away on the formation lap prior to the start of the 1994 Brazilian Grand Prix. Terrible time for Ferrari in the warm-up. Gerhard Berger's engine lets go with pneumatic problems in the warm-up. The team worked frantically to put a new engine into the car. That lets go as the mechanics are actually warming it up on the high stands in the garage. So you had a third engine in Berger's car. Problems also for Alesi having to jump into the spare car, and it looked like Ferrari were all over the place going into the first race of the year.
However, Jean Alesi did manage to qualify, as you see, 3rd on the grid there, but nearly 2 seconds slower than the pole time of Ayrton Senna.
You may have noticed that Michael Schumacher and his Benetton actually passed pole sitter Ayrton Senna on this formation lap, something he would be penalized for later in the season. Now Senna has restored the status quo.
And when that happened at Silverstone later on in that year, it was one of those things that I personally, I had no idea you weren't supposed to do that, because everybody always used to just jumble up like mad on the pace lap, on the formation lap.
Now, Steve mentioned at the beginning of the show there was so much that had changed in 1994. Gone were all the elaborate computer-controlled driver aids. Senna, whose name was synonymous with success at McLaren, had moved on to Williams-Renault. His teammate, Damon Hill. Alain Prost, having won the title for Williams the year before, retired from the sport. Hence, Hill took the grid with a car numbered 0. No number 1 on either of the Williams Renaults.
Yeah. Alain Prost, of course, in the Williams the year before in 1993, when he won the World Championship, having an absolutely staggering run of pole positions.
You're right. Big technical changes. Off was active suspension, ABS, all the brake system was off, launch control, traction control gone. We were back to coilover springs and dampers, very basic. The drivers were forced to start the race just using foot control with the clutch. There, the other Benetton B194 with Jos Verstappen in the car. JJ Leto had actually been signed as the second driver in the Benetton team. You just see Schumacher laying down a little bit of smoke on the tyres, but due to an accident in testing, our test driver, Jos Verstappen, in the other Benetton.
Michael Schumacher matching his career best qualifying performance at this point. Only second, had not won a pole to this point in his career. For Senna, it was his 6th pole in his native Brazil, though he had won the race only twice coming in.
As you can see a big field, 26 cars assembling on that uphill straight at Brazil. They form up a little bit further up towards turn 1 now.
Including 2 new teams, Simtech and Pacific, each of which put 1 car in the field. Let's listen for the start.
Senna on the left, Schumacher on the right.
Jean Alesi in red splits the front row.
Great start.
That is exactly what we didn't want to happen. We knew Alesi had great horsepower, but we knew also that the chassis was a horrible handling car, as you'll see during these opening laps. And Schumacher desperate to get by the Ferrari because he would get held up.
Onto the Reta Aposta, the long straightaway. And look at the sparks from under the cars. No underbody planks on these machines.
Senna taking advantage of a clear run from pole, streaking away through up there into the Ferradura and up into these tighter corners, the Pinheiro and Laranja. Tight little corners. Michael Schumacher snapping at the heels now, Jean Alesi.
Alesi, Schumacher, and Hill all battling over second place. An interesting mix of engine types. V10s, V8s, even the V12s at Ferrari.
Schumacher goes down the inside on that vital last turn.
Can he make it stick? Can he make it stick? Look at the power of that V12 Ferrari. Pulls it back again.
Yeah, Schumacher overshot it a little bit, went in just a little bit too fast, ran a bit wide, and Alesi grabbed it back. But Alesi probably would have passed him anyway with that superior horsepower. Schumacher desperately trying to get a toe up there. Damon Hill right behind him.
Schumacher tries again. A puff of smoke from Damon Hill's Williams. One lap complete. Senna leading in front of his deliriously happy home fans.
And this is just what we didn't want. You can see now already, guys, the gap building up as Senna takes advantage of the fact that Schumacher is struggling to get past the 412 T1 Ferrari. Again, a lot of power, but just awful understeer these guys were suffering with in winter testing and during practice for this race. And we knew we had to get by. We knew we had to get by and get at Williams.
On that fast run up there, you can see he pulled out yards, but as soon as they get to the tight, twisty bit here, Michael Schumacher is all over him.
The Black Saubers qualified very, very well.
And Charles Frentzen having a good duel with Mika Hakkinen.
Frentzen and Carl Wendlinger, the young drivers for Peter Sauber.
Michael Schumacher making a move again. He does it again.
Oh, is he going to be able to make it stick on this long uphill run? Power so important here. Alesi now has got the draft. He's going to tuck right in under the tail of Michael Schumacher. Pulls up on him.
Oh, Alesi down in the pit entrance.
Yeah, Michael Schumacher not giving him any room. A trademark that we're so used to seeing. But having got in front, look at the way he pulls away through these the first S bends here. Big advantage. Huge advantage.
Look at him go now. That's the handling of the chassis over the Ferrari handling. Certainly not a amount of power. We know that Ferrari got a lot more power than our little V8 Ford engine. But Michael just making the most of it as soon as he could get around the car.
You can already tell the difference, taking away some of those driver aids made on the field. A much tighter bunched field in qualifying. There they are, several laps into the race, and no one drawing away save one of the greatest driving talents of all time, Ayrton Senna. We'll be back in a moment with Formula One Decade. Welcome back to F1 Decade here on Speed Channel. Bob Varsha, David Hobbs, Steve Matchett with you, and there is Ayrton Senna leading the 1994 Brazilian Grand Prix in his debut for the Williams-Renault team.
An incredible dihedral wing on the bottom element there.
Yeah. That's a hallmark, or a trademark, I should say, of Adrian Newey. Of course, the famous aerodynamicist who's now technical director at McLaren. But all his cars were very beautifully sculpted pieces of aerodynamic work.
Currently running second is Michael Schumacher in the Benetton, having gotten around the Ferrari of Jean Alesi after a great fight on board with Senna.
Yeah, and then that last shot, nobody in sight.
There's Gerhard Berger headed for the pits. Steve, you talked about their problems with the valve train.
That's the same problem, pneumatic O-ring problem. Remember, there was no wire valves, conventional wire valves, keeping the valves in the air. It was all done by air pressure. So the third engine failure. That's Gianno Morbidelli out with gearbox problems.
Very disappointing for him because he had qualified so well, 6th in the footwork forward. Not that far off the pace. It's 1:17.8 compared to John Lacey's 1:17.3. So Morbidelli looked like he might have a good run.
As the leader,